right, we are live. That
Hey!
happened.
This
The
little warning.
authentic minute. Yeah, Brittany was just like, we're going live. 3, 2,
We're
1,
going
and the
live!
countdown started. Well, I was gonna tell you if I end up getting the call from my health insurance company. We'll tell the people on the air right now who are listening too.
Right.
Like, cover for me, talk for me while my screen goes dark for a little bit, okay?
We are going to have to go short because who knows how
Yeah,
long that's going to be. So this is going to be a
right?
shorter episode, everybody.
I'm currently on hour 3 of trying to navigate things with my health insurance, and they were like, "We'll call you back after 4:30 p.m. tonight," which is in about 15 minutes. So, if we get that
Oh,
call, that's why we will end abruptly. So, let's dive in now, shall we?
yeah. This
It's
is a
my
good
turn.
chapter.
It was a good
It
chapter. I think it's
is.
very actionable for teachers.
Yeah. It's so well we're going to go into it. The
Yeah,
chapter
we'll get into it
um
in detail.
if you're just following us, we are reading Eric Toshalis's book Make Me: Understanding Student Resistance. And we are in chapter 4. Chapter 4 is This Should Be Different: Cognition and Imagination at the Foundation of Resistance. All right. 2-minute summary on
Let's
the
do.
clock. Okay, hold on. Let me get it up. Not 2 hours. 2 minutes. You ready?
I'm gonna try so hard not to ramble. Yeah. All right. So, in chapter 4, This Should Be Different: Cognition and Imagination at the Foundation of Resistance, Tashalis examines why resisting is actually very developmentally appropriate for our older kids and also about why it exists in terms of the brain, and then what we can do to support our kids through this. So, first things first, we start off by talking about learning and how it is effective when we're building upon something kids already know, not just like cramming it all down their throats or making these arbitrary connections. Like when we're teaching kids content, we need to make it stick and make it be meaningful and relevant for them. And the book opened with a really awesome story about this teacher, Miss Jackson, who made her science class come to life, talking about force and gravity. And how if she just went into the lesson by talking about that, then the kids aren't going to retain it. She has to get them wondering and wanting to know why. And through this chapter, it ends up talking about why we do so many things that kind of destroy, I guess, a desire for kids to want to seek out answers and to challenge things and discover things. And I definitely think, as this is my personal thoughts now, I definitely think as education as a whole, like we want to get to a spot where we are embracing this curiosity and embracing kids taking that ownership. But our structures don't always allow for it, which is where we see resistance coming into play. So, toward the end of the chapter, he ends up talking about different ways that we can support kids through this by engaging their cognition and having them like make meaning of what they're learning and find value in it.
Okay. My turn.
All right.
So this was my chapter. This is the chapter when I talk about this book to teachers. I screenshotted the chapter and gave it to all of my coaching clients. I don't know if you're supposed to do that or if that's like a
Eric
copyright thing.
Tashalis, we apologize.
But I reference this chapter so much.
Mhm.
And I'm about to tell you why as soon as you start that clock because I
All right, let's do it.
I want it on the clock. All right. Okay, so in this chapter we're looking at cognition and how cognition can create friction and anxiety, specifically when we are asking kids to build new information based off of the information they already have or change their beliefs about certain information or certain understandings. And it's called cognitive dissonance. And he does such a great job explaining cognitive dissonance and how it can create that resistance. And when we're saying resistance, we're saying that those negative, inappropriate behaviors that we see in the classroom, um, just from learning new information and the anxiety being raised because that's not the information that they know. That's not how they previously understood whatever it is, whether it's um, how trees grow or how society exists. And now that I'm working more with teachers than I am with K to 12 students, I'm seeing that cognitive dissonance in teachers too, and I really like that's gonna be my action step for today is, um, how we need to prepare for cognitive dissonance in teachers when we're giving them the new information on how to handle student behavior. We need to prepare for that, and we need to let them know that that's okay and it's going to happen. So, this chapter was all about like the cognitive systems and how it increases anxiety and how that anxiety influences behavior in the form of resistance.
All
Boom.
right. Awesome.
Yeah.
So now let's dive into the quotes. I'm curious, what's like the number one quote you share with teachers that you work with from this chapter?
Oh, number one. Okay, so there are a couple. Um, I'd say the number one is the hypothetical thinking, and it's not so
Yeah.
much a quote, but the idea. So let me get to the section. For hypothetical thinking, if you're teaching students who are in between the ages of 10 and 13, 14, their brains have turned on their hypothetical thinking brain. Like it has the ability to hypothetically think, to
Activated.
wonder what if. What?
It's activated.
Yeah, it's now activated. It's like a new superpower. They've never been able to really do that before, or they never understood that there are multiple scenarios, multiple paths they can take, multiple results to their actions, and they start experimenting. And if you don't engage that hypothetical thinking, their brain is going to try to exercise it as much as possible because it's a new skill. So they're going to start hypothetically thinking in situations and scenarios that might not be appropriate for the classroom.
And they might be hypothetically trying.
Yeah, right. So let me see. Oh, this is it. This is it.
All right.
Okay. If classroom texts yield only adult sanctioned interpretations, if science labs are predetermined, if math problems can only be solved in one way, and if opinions about historical events are constrained to whatever the experts declare, adolescents will divert their imaginations away from academics and into activities where they themselves can flourish. In class, we might see such diversions in various forms of inventive misbehavior, a preference for drawing or doodling during lectures, or even a constant background hum of social chattering when students are supposed to be listening. All these actions may be attempts to create moments where possibilities are imagined, where the brain doesn't have to just sit and receive, but instead can fly off and explore.
Mhm. I
I-
love it. It even makes
Mhm.
me think too, like right now we're doing my favorite unit we do all year long, which is our chocolate research conference. And I have my students make a full blown, like collegiate style research poster, and we hold our own research conference. And they get to pick whatever topic they want as long as they can make chocolate be a part of it. So it's really cool. Like they do things like the history of Hershey Park. What chocolate's actually good for your health? Is chocolate going to give you acne? Why is chocolate a pregnancy craving? Like they do some like really interesting topics that they find like based on their interest. And yesterday we had like 2 minutes till the bell ring, and I was like, "All right, guys, I'm gonna be able to have you guys start claiming some topics right now." They were so excited. Everybody's hand was in the air. trying to say like, I want this one. And then when the bell rang and it was their lunch and recess block, they did not want to leave my classroom. They were like, no, can we just say we want to do first? I'm like, no, you have to leave. Like, you have to go eat. Go. They were so excited to share it and have their choice.
I mean, how many times does that happen? Like, we have these great imaginative projects where kids can explore,
Hmm.
and they're so into it because here's this organized activity that they're all doing together. We're hitting all of the needs.
Yeah.
Like, they have autonomy, they've got choice. They feel a sense of belonging because they're talking to each other about the topics and listening to each other's topics. And they feel competent because it's embracing a skill that's like newly developed and they want to practice.
Exactly.
Boom, Ash.
And you can find my
Yeah.
research conference template.
Yeah.
It is on my TPT store. It's also in the village, or I'll make sure I share it inside the village membership for people because it's so great. Like, I love doing this project every single year, and the kids knock it out of the park, what they create. And like, they present for the entire cafeteria. Like, we invite families in, and I have like a keynote opening, closing speaker. It's outrageous. Like, this is the stuff.
I think I remember you doing this last year.
Hmm.
Did you do it last year?
Yeah, I've done it every year.
Yeah.
It's so fun. It's
Oh,
the
that's so
best.
cool.
So if you've not tried it yet, try it out
Mhm,
if you're listening to this. It's so cool seeing what
mhm,
the kids create. Okay, so now let me pull my quote from
mhm.
page 66. This one's a bit longer because there's a lot in it, but it says, resistance, it turns out, isn't just a negative outcome of bad learning conditions, but rather is fundamental to the learning process. To understand something, the learner must accept new knowledge from a source external to the self. The key word is acceptance. Even when the context around learners compels them to accept something, if the knowledge presents enough conflict with the learner's pre existing understanding, the learner will likely resist. Curriculum theorist Charles Bingham explains it this way: the act of learning depends primarily on the acceptance that the knowledge of someone else, or something, or some situation deserves a spot in one's own scheme of things. When one learns from a teacher, for example, there must be either a conscious or an unconscious acknowledgement that the teacher has something to offer that is actually superior to that which one knows at present. Which is kind of what we were talking about before,
Yep.
you know?
Cognitive dissonance.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think I I don't it's of course it's a theory that can be taught, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everything can be taught. But I think it's much easier to understand when you get people into a state of cognitive dissonance and you're like, this is it. And with, like I said before, the teachers that I have trained or I've worked with, not so much with coaching because by the time they're coming to me with coaching, they already have like a general understanding of student behavior. But for teachers that really struggle with empathizing and understanding student behavior, um, when this is their moment of cognitive dissonance,
Yeah.
that punitive practices don't work. And it's boom. And I'm like, right there, that anxiety,
Yeah.
that stress, that's cognitive dissonance.
And this is also why it's so important that trust exists in our classrooms too.
Yes.
Because
Yes.
if you're going to create that space for cognitive dissonance and you don't trust the person creating it,
Mhm.
nothing fruitful is going to come out of it.
Right. Right. Or if you feel like that person is um not attacking so much,
Mhm.
but like seeking out your weaknesses, because that was mentioned in the
Yeah.
book too, in this chapter, that he talks about the system 1 and system 2 brain,
Mhm.
which is actually from, Kahneman, Thinking Fast and Slow, which is actually on my it's sitting there
On your
on my
bookshelf?
bookshelf right now. I have not opened it yet.
I love it.
But eventually, um, so the system 1 and system 2 brain, and system 1 is our limbic system, and our fight and flight, the mammalian brain, and then system 2 is the executive functioning, higher order thinking brain, and, um, in explaining system 1 and system 2, pretty much says which we say all the time. We talk about this all the time, I feel like. If a student is in system 1, they are not learning. They're not thinking.
Yeah.
They are either trying to fight or they're trying to bolt. That's it.
Another testament to why we should not have punitive practices.
Right. Unless you want kids in fight or flight the entire time they're in your classroom, and then they don't learn.
I have a
Or
quote. I have a quote in this area too.
All right.
Okay, page 73. It says, when learners feel threatened, they act like reptiles. Students and educators who feel unsafe, preyed upon, stressed, or otherwise endangered, either physically, socially, or intellectually, will tend to respond using System 1. And in such cases, they don't think so much as they react.
Yes. And I think this is in the same section. Threatening the already threatened student with punishment, failure, public humiliation, banishment to the principal's office, or suspension may only exacerbate forms of resistance born of the fight or flight response.
We have the same brain. I highlight the same thing over here.
See? This is how we found each other, Ash.
Exactly.
But there's another one that I wanted to attach to like my action step. It's about emotion and memory.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's really, really good. So if you do daydreaming, honest with ourselves. Oh, that's a good quote too. So I'm not going to try to find the quote because I end up just going in like circles with this. But I am going to like sum it up.
Yes.
So if you are trying to get your kids to remember something, you can use mnemonic devices, right? Everybody knows. Yeah. Like make it a sing-song thing, make it rhyme, make it an acronistic poem. Is that acronistic?
Acrostic.
Is it? Acrostic?
Yeah.
Acrostic. Okay. Acrostic poem. But the best thing you can do is storytell and engage emotions. And this works so good for our neurodivergent kids because we attach memories. We attach, or we take those memories or take that information and put it back in our long-term storage. Okay. If it is emotionally reactive, if we have an emotional response to it, we will remember it forever. But if there's not really an emotional response, it's likely it's going to be forgotten until it's attached to an emotional response.
Yeah. Or unless you do like intentional, like pedagogical things to help recall it. But that storytelling, it's so powerful.
I'm going to say for really severe ADHD kids, the pedagogical it's going to take a long time, and you're going to get the best bang for your buck if you do something emotional. It makes it much more sticky. It also holds the attention better because ADHD kids, they don't have an issue with ADHDers don't have an issue with long-term memory, long-term retention, or even short-term retention. We have an issue with working memory and fleeing attention rate, right? But if you can hold our attention, which you can do with stories, and you can give us an emotional response, we're going to remember that information. It's going right there in the back of the brain. Long-term storage.
Yeah.
That's my spiel. That was my action tip, I guess. What's your action tip?
So mine is I guess it's kind of twofold. Number one, to create an environment where you are the trusted adult and kids will trust you and trust what is coming out of your mouth. And also to engage that hypothetical thinking and to use it and to create a classroom where it's a part of what you do as well. That's
I agree.
Me too signal from Brittany too for all the listeners.
Yep. Oh, yeah, yeah. All right. So that is the short and sweet of it. We had to do a shorter episode today, but thank you all so much for following along. We love
Yes,
you.
for being here.
Yeah.
All right. Until next time, I'm Ashlyn,
I'm Brittany
and we hope you feel remoralized
and re-energized.